What's up, y'all? It's Wednesday, July 20th, and you're listening to the College Football Daily. I'm your host, Chris Hummer, and today we're talking about Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are coming off a 12-2 season and a Fiesta Bowl win, the program's best showing since 2011. As for what's next in Stillwater, we've brought in Go Pokes beat writer Cody Nagel to discuss the Cowboys' 2022 season. Cody, welcome to the show. Hope you're doing great.
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Vibes are immaculate. I wanted to start with Spencer Sanders. Let's go with the familiar for the people. Dip our toes in the water with Oklahoma State was something that we all have grown to know over the last 4 years. He's back in Stillwater for his fourth season as the starter. At Big 12 Media Days, Mike Gundy seemed to indicate that something clicked for Spencer late last season. I'm wondering, did you see the same? And what are the expectations for Spencer entering 2022?
Yeah, I think, kind of the thing that clicked is the more they're able to play up tempo, just the more comfortable he is, which that kind of seems a little bit backwards in a way. You'd think the faster he'd get, the faster he's having to think through things, the more prone he'd be for mistakes. But, I think the example that he was trying to make is that Notre Dame game in the Fiesta Bowl. They get down 3 touchdowns and they really had to push the pace in the second half. And that was probably the best stretch of any half that Spencer had last season. So I think that's kind of the thing that clicked for him last year. They weren't really able to play fast early in the year. They had some offensive line injuries, just kind of new guys they were kind of plugging in there. And the running back position really wasn't really solid in those first few weeks in the non-conference schedule. So they weren't really able to play that up tempo that Spencer's comfortable with. So, I think if they're able to do that this year, you could see, one of his best seasons here in Stillwater.
I'm wondering, I think 7 of 11 starters on offense return. So there's a lot of familiarity around Spencer, but there are 2 key places to replace and 1,000-yard rusher Jalen Warren and 1,000-yard receiver Tay Martin, who both have left the program. Who is going to step in and help replace that production at both of those positions?
Yeah, I think wide receiver, there's probably a handful of guys that could step up. They put in a lot of freshman receivers last year, and a lot of those guys are obviously back this year for their sophomore season. So, having that experience from last year, obviously then there's Brennan Presley. He's going to be a junior now. I think he's definitely going to be a guy that gets a lot of the targets, but other names, John Paul Richardson, Bryson Green, Blaine Green, the 2 Green twins there. And Jaden Bray is another, big receiving threat, big-bodied guy. He could be the, the guy in my mind for Spencer this year, just as far as, his ability to contest down the field. He's a receiver that really has only played football for a few years. Basketball was kind of his sport in high school, and finally, realized that, maybe my future's in football. So, Jaden Bray's a name to watch at running back. There's also a few guys that could step up, but I think Dominic Richardson, he's a junior. He'll be the lead back there. That'll get the bulk of the carries. But there's always kind of been this injury issue in the backfield for Oklahoma State. They start the season with one guy, and he's not really the guy that ends the season. So Jaden Nixon will be a redshirt freshman this year. He's a name to watch. And then they also got DeAndre Jackson, a transfer from Texas A&M that should take some carries too. So there's a few guys at each of those positions, but it's kind of hard to predict, they don't really have the guy kind of established going into fall camp here.
Gotcha. I just want to, Brennan Presley real quick. This has really nothing to do with the season, but I just want to mention that at Big 12 Media Days, he said something about eating candy and my ears perked up. And basically he said he eats about 2 pounds of candy every 2 weeks, which is just insane. And
yeah, he said he spends like $30 on candy and that'll last him like 2 weeks or so, which I don't know how he consumes that much and how he goes through the training programs that Coach Rob Glass puts him through. But yeah, he's a different character, and yeah, eating popcorn and candy for dinner for a full week is basically what he did once. So
truly a cornerback's nightmare and a dentist. So let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles obviously left for Ohio State. His replacement, Derek Mason, comes over from Auburn. Will the scheme change much in that transition?
No, I think that the scheme will stay the same. I think what the thing people don't really realize is, you lose Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator is gone. They expect the whole system's going to be different. They're bringing in somebody new, but it really wasn't Jim Knowles' system. I think over the years that he was here, the whole coaching staff collectively kind of worked to build their own system. So that's all pretty much in place. Obviously, Derek Mason comes in and will add his, twists and everything to it and in his different coverages. But for the most part, everything will be the same. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be as drastic of a change as some people might expect.
Okay. So defensively, I think 5 starters return. So let's go good and bad with the defense. What's the strength of this unit? I imagine it's probably going to be the defensive line. And what questions do you have entering the season?
Yeah, the strength's definitely the defensive line. You get pretty much everyone back there except for Israel Antwine. But Colin Oliver's back, Brock Martin's back, and then you also get Trace Ford back, who didn't even play last year, but had 2 really outstanding freshman and sophomore seasons back in 2019 and 2020. But he's coming off a pair of knee injuries, so it's kind of iffy how he'll perform. But yeah, defensive line's definitely the strength. Question marks is definitely linebacker. You lose Malcolm Rodriguez, Devin Harper. There's a few guys that are going to have to step up there. I think Xavier Benson, a JUCO transfer that actually has 2 years of experience from Texas Tech, is a name to watch there. Mason Cobb as well, probably next to him. Then you get into the secondary, you lose both your starting cornerbacks there. Now they've got two juniors that have experience but are still kind of young in my opinion. You got Corey Black and Jabbar Muhammad, both of which who played really well in the Fiesta Bowl. So I expect those guys to be the starters there. Then safety, you still get Jason Taylor back. Thomas Harper's back. That'd be Devin Harper's younger brother. So there's some spots to fill there, but overall, the defensive line is going to be the strength for sure. It's something they're going to have to lean on up there.
Gotcha. You mentioned one a second ago. Offense or defense, is there a newcomer on the team you expect to have the biggest impact, whether it's a transfer or a freshman?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Xavier Benson is probably the most impactful. I think just his experience that he has in the Big 12. He played at Texas Tech for 2 years, went to Tyler Community College or Tyler Junior College, and was an All-American there. So getting him in there, just having that experience to fill a spot for Malcolm Rodriguez or Devin Harper, either one of those is a big loss. He's not going to be match those guys. But just not having as far of a drop off and having him come in should help for sure.
Gotcha. So last year, Oklahoma State ranked 84th nationally in yards per play offensively and 5th in yards allowed per play defensively. I would imagine, given the losses on defense, that number, no matter how good Derek Mason is as a play caller, and no matter how good their placements are, it's going to drop a little bit. How much better does that offense have to be for Oklahoma State to maintain a similar trajectory in your mind?
Yeah, it needs to improve for sure. I think there was too much, I guess, inconsistency might be the right word. They'd have good games with Spencer Sanders at quarterback, but then you'd also have some where, if that defense wasn't as good as it was, they'd probably lose a few games that they probably shouldn't. So I think, the offense definitely has to improve. This is Spencer Sanders' 4th year. It's kind of time for him to, prove that he's a legit quarterback and can be one of the best in the Big 12. Obviously he won or got the first team all Big 12 last year, but there's kind of some question marks on, did he deserve that really? But, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder this year and wants to prove that, he can lead this offense and get back to that, kind of high powered stuff that Oklahoma State's been known for over the years.
Yeah, the dichotomy of Spencer Sanders in the Big 12 championship throwing 4 interceptions. And then what he did a couple weeks later in the Fiesta Bowl, it's just like the Spencer Sanders experience in my mind. You never know what you're going to get on that front. Oklahoma State's finished 4th or better in the Big 12 standings, I think 9 of the last 10 years. That's kind of the floor in Stillwater. They're going to be in the mix. What will it take for this team to reach its ceiling in the Big 12?
I hate to repeat myself, but I really think it's the offense. I don't think the defense is going to have this big drop off. I think the only concern I really have is Derek Mason's play calling, as far as coverages and stuff. I think Jim Knowles is one of the best in the country at that, and making halftime adjustments. And if the offense or opposing offense has a good first quarter, first half, Jim Knowles is gonna adjust to that. That'll be a question mark, is whether Derek Mason can follow that up and have that same play calling ability. But I think it's to the offense's responsibility to match that level of play. And I think having the experience Spencer Sanders has, getting a healthy offensive line, that's kind of been an issue the past couple of years. And then just having multiple playmakers on the outside and in the backfield. I think for a while there, that was kind of it was Chuba Hubbard and Tyler Wallace. I know that was a couple of years ago, but it was just those two guys, and there really wasn't a whole lot behind them. So I think having multiple playmakers, being able to have threats throughout the field, and get back to that level of offense that Oklahoma State's been known for over the years.
And then finally, I wanted to ask you about Mike Gundy. It wouldn't be an Oklahoma State podcast without talking about Mike Gundy. He's gone from one of the youngest coaches in the country to now being the elder statesman of the Big 12, which is crazy. He's no longer a man who's 40 for sure.
Yeah.
He's now making $7.5 million a year after a contract change this offseason. And obviously, it was an interesting offseason the year before that resulted in his contract dropping the way it did. I'm just wondering, what's the temperature on Gundy among the Cowboy fan base as Oklahoma State looks for its first Big 12 title in over a decade?
Yeah, I think last year definitely changed the approach. I think he was kind of on a bit of a hot seat. But, the fact that they, come literally inches short of winning a Big 12 title, go to the Fiesta Bowl and win that. I think fans realize, okay, he's still got some good years left in him. Let's not chase him out of town or anything just yet. But obviously I think he's going to be here the rest of his career. I don't see him, coaching anywhere else. I think his comfort level is as best as it's been here, just with the change in administration, new president, new athletic director. But as far as just the fans' opinion, I think they realize how good they have it. You see all these other coaching changes across the country. Sometimes they don't work out as what you would see or what you'd think. So I think, he's in a better place now, I think, than he was, a couple of years ago, when all the, different scandal stuff, not really scandal stuff, but, controversy, I guess, was going on. And there's a lot of people that kind of wanted him out. So I think there's kind of a mutual understanding that, we want this guy around. Let's not chase him out of town just yet.
Gotcha. Well, Cody, thanks so much for joining the podcast today. And for myself and our producer, Jordan Maiden, thanks for listening. I'll talk to y'all soon.